The next question is: which Azure service provides a set of version control tools for managing your code? Option A: Azure Repos. Option B: Azure Dev Test Labs. Option C: Azure Storage. Option D: Azure Cosmos DB. Option A is the correct answer. Azure Repos is a set of version control tools that you can use to manage your code. It provides an unlimited amount of private Git repositories hosted in the cloud for your project. Option B is incorrect. Azure Dev Test Labs is a service that allows developers to efficiently manage virtual machines and other PaaS resources without waiting for approval and has nothing to do with code management. Option C is incorrect. Azure Storage is a durable data store in the cloud that has nothing to do with code management. Option D is incorrect. Azure Cosmos DB is NoSQL's high-performance data store and has nothing to do with code management. The next question is: true or false? Paying for electricity in a data center is an example of OpEx. Option A: true. Option B: false. The correct answer is true. OpEx is the cost of running a business. This includes things like printer cartridges, paper, electricity, and annual expenses like hosting and web domain registration. In this way, electricity bill payments are examples of OpEx. The next question is: true or false? If you create two Azure virtual machines that use B2S size, each virtual machine will always generate the same monthly cost. Option A: true. Option B: false. The correct answer is false. When deployed with Azure reserved VM instances, the costs may vary depending on the OS and the region selected, so they may not be the same. Also, even with pay-as-you-go billing, the cost will change, based on how much you use it, so the price may not be the same. The next question is: please select the correct option to fill in the following blank. If Microsoft plans to end support for Azure services that do not have a successor service, Microsoft will provide a notification at least in advance. Option A: 12 months. Option B: 6 months. Option C: 90 days. Option D: 30 days. The correct answer is option A. In accordance with our modern lifecycle policy, Microsoft will notify you at least 12 months in advance of the end of support if no subsequent products or services are offered, except for free services or preview releases. The next question is: your company plans to build a billing application on Azure. In order to build the application, it is necessary to install the other necessary applications and software on the server in advance. Which cloud model is best for this application? Option A: Software as a Service, SaaS. Option B: Platform as a Service, PaaS. Option C: Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS. Option D: Desktop as a Service, DOS. Option C is the correct answer. Since it is necessary to install necessary applications and software on the server in advance, it is required to configure a virtual server and set up the server on the user side. Therefore, you would use infrastructure as a service, IaaS, such as virtual machines. Option A is incorrect. It is incorrect because SaaS does not allow you to build your own applications. Option B is incorrect. With PaaS, you wouldn't need to install any prerequisite applications. Option D is incorrect. DOS is an abbreviation of Desktop as a Service and is a service that provides desktops via the Internet. It has nothing to do with this requirement. The next question is: your company utilizes Active Directory in an on-premises environment to manage 3,000 user accounts. The company plans to move all network resources to Azure and discontinue its on-premises data center. Which option below should you use to minimize the impact on user management? Option A: Implement Azure multi-factor authentication. Option B: Sync all Active Directory user accounts to Azure AD. Option C: Instruct all users to change their passwords. Option D: Create a guest user account in Azure AD for each user. Option B is the correct answer. Because the number of user accounts will reach 3,000, a mechanism to efficiently migrate users is crucial. By synchronizing the Active Directory user account with Azure Active Directory, the impact on the user can be minimized. Option A is incorrect. This is an authentication service for when a user logs in through the Azure portal or connects to an Azure resource in the Azure public cloud. This will not help move your on-premises user account to Azure AD. Option C is incorrect. It is a mistake to tell all users to change their passwords. This will not assist in moving all user accounts from on-premises to the Azure public cloud. Option D is incorrect. Creating a guest user account for each user in Azure Active Directory. It requires the creation of 3,000 user accounts, which is extremely inefficient. The next question is: you are building an application using a virtual machine in Azure. As a security requirement, it is necessary to monitor security threats. Which Azure service below would you use for this? Option A: Azure Monitor. Option B: Azure Security Center. Option C: Azure Active Directory ID Protection. Option D: Azure Advanced Threat Protection. Option D is the correct answer. Azure Advanced Threat Protection is a service that monitors user activity across the Azure network. It is also used to detect suspicious user activity and malicious attacks within your organization. It is also used to protect Azure Active Directory user identities. Option A is incorrect. Azure Monitor is used to collect monitoring data about applications, guest operating systems, Azure resources, Azure subscriptions, and Azure tenants and will not help with monitoring security threats. Option B is incorrect. Azure Security Center is incorrect. When configured, inbound access to the VM can be locked by Azure Security Center using a network security group rule. This will not help with monitoring security threats. Option C is incorrect. Azure Active Directory ID Protection is incorrect because it uses data from the Azure portal for risk analysis. The data can also be sent to other vendors for analysis. The next question is: please select the correct option to fill in the following blank. Dash is used to store the secrets of your Azure Active Directory user account. Option A: Azure Key Vault. Option B: Azure Active Directory Administrator account. Option C: Personally Identifiable Information, PII. Option D: Server Application. Option A is the correct answer. Azure Key Vault is correct because it is used to store secrets such as passwords associated with Azure Active Directory user accounts. Option B is incorrect. The Azure Active Directory managed account is incorrect because it is not used to store the secrets associated with the Azure AD user account. It is only used for administrative purposes of Azure AD accounts. Option C is incorrect. Personally identifiable information is incorrect because you can't store the secret associated with your Azure AD user account. Option D is incorrect. The server application is incorrect because it is not used to store the secrets associated with the Azure AD user account. The next question is: how is the monthly availability rate of virtual machines calculated? Option A: minute downtime, maximum minutes available x 100. Option B: maximum fractions available, 60 by 99.99. Option C: maximum available minutes downtime in minutes, maximum number of minutes available x 100. Option D: maximum number of minutes available downtime in minutes, 60 by 100. Option E: downtime in minutes, 1440 by 99.90. Option C is the correct answer. Availability rate is calculated by the monthly uptime, maximum available minutes minus downtime in minutes, divided by the maximum available minutes per month. The next question is: you have an Azure AD tenant in your Azure subscription. All administrators are required to enter a verification code to access the Azure portal. You need to allow your administrator to access the Azure portal only from your on-premises network. Choose the best way to achieve this. Option A: Azure AD Identity Protection User Risk Policy. Option B: Multi-factor authentication service settings. Option C: Default settings for all Azure AD privileged identity management roles. Option D: Azure AD Identity Protection Sign-in Risk Policy. Option D is the correct answer. This scenario requires the administrator to enter the code to access the Azure portal only from the on-premises network. Azure Active Directory has a feature called Identity Protection that manages only authorized users to sign into the Azure portal. Option A is incorrect. The Azure AD Identity Protection User Risk Policy is incorrect because it only requires a password change and does not include MFA. Option B is incorrect. The multi-factor authentication service configuration is incorrect because the MFA only allows you to configure trusted devices, not the login location such as on-premise sites. Option C is incorrect. The default for all Azure AD privileged identity management roles is incorrect because you can only configure MFA and you can't define a location, on-premises address, here. The next question is: which cloud computing model eliminates the need to manage the operating system on the part of the user? Option A: PaaS. Option B: IaaS. Option C: SaaS. Option D: DaaS. Option A is the correct answer. Platform as a service allows users to focus on deploying and managing their applications without having to manage the underlying infrastructure, typically hardware and operating systems. This makes it more efficient because you don't have to worry about tasks relating to resource procurement, capacity planning, software maintenance, patching, or running your application. Option B is incorrect. Infrastructure as a service is a cloud format that allows you to use the hardware needed when using servers, etc. over the network. Option C is incorrect. Software as a service is cloud-based software that allows you to use as many functions and services as you need. It may also be used for some software that is available over the internet. Option D is incorrect. Desktop as a service is a virtual desktop, a cloud service that provides a desktop virtualization system deployed in a cloud environment. The next question is: what is the correct description of a benefit of on-demand cloud usage? Option A: being able to flexibly configure resources at any time. Option B: being able to continue service even if a failure occurs. Option C: being able to maintain performance during load fluctuations. Option D: flexible ability to change resource allocation. Option A is the correct answer. One of the features of Cloud on Demand is the flexibility to configure resources at any time. By using the cloud, you can configure and use the server whenever as you need it. The next question is: your company wants to move their e-commerce site to Azure. Which is the correct option below for what the company should do during this initial planning stage? Option A: calculate the initial costs. Option B: choose the services to use within Azure. Option C: coordinate a meeting with Azure staff. Option D: choose the VPN connection method with Azure. The correct answer is Option B is the correct answer. It is necessary to select the Azure resources to be used before migrating the EC site to Azure and then decide the migration method. Option A is incorrect. There is no initial cost, so there is no need to consider this. However, it is necessary to calculate the medium to long-term resource usage fee. Option C is incorrect. You do not need to apply or have a meeting with Azure in order to use Azure. It is always available. Option D is incorrect. Since the EC site is a web application, it is not essential to make a VPN connection with the office. The next question is: your company wants to move their e-commerce site to Azure. Their reason is that they must be able to flexibly respond to fluctuations in demand. What do you call this kind of response, in terms of being a feature of the cloud? Option A: dynamic scaling. Option B: pilot light. Option C: fault tolerance. Option D: low latency. Option A is the correct answer. Dynamic scalability means the ability of a system to grow and shrink based on demand or system requirements. Option C is incorrect. Fault tolerant is a concept that allows a part of the system to continue to operate without stopping the entire system if something goes wrong. Option B is incorrect. Pilot light is a prepared, stopped server in another region that it can be used in the event of a failure. Option D is incorrect. Low latency is incorrect because it is a feature of the system that users can quickly access anywhere. The next question is: you want to minimize the management of your own web application. Which cloud model should you use when creating your app? Solution: add-in SaaS model type service. Does this solution meet the requirements? Option A: yes. Option B: no. The correct answer is no is the correct answer. Software as a service is cloud-based software that allows you to use it as needed. It is a web service that has already been completed by another company, and cannot be used when building your own web application. If you use your own web application, SaaS cannot be used. The next question is: what do you call a section of independent operational infrastructure located within a region? Option A: availability zone. Option B: region. Option C: resource group. Option D: subnet. Option A is the correct answer. In Azure, an independent infrastructure operational partition located within a region is called an availability zone. Option B is incorrect. A group of data centers connected by a high-speed network that is geographically adjacent to each other in Azure is called a region. Option C is incorrect. Use resource groups to define resources as one group. Resources with the same life cycle can be grouped together in the same resource group. When you delete a resource group, all the resources on it are also deleted. Option D is incorrect. A subnet is a subnetwork that divides a virtual network. The next question is: your company develops two applications. How do you need to design each application separately in order to develop them independently? Option A: isolate availability zones. Option B: separate regions. Option C: separate subnets. Option D: isolate the virtual network. Option D is the correct answer. Azure Virtual Network is a basic component of a private network within Azure. By separating the virtual network, you can separate the applications. VNet also allows different types of Azure resources, such as Azure Virtual Machines, VMs, to securely communicate with other Azure resources, the Internet, and on-premises networks. Option A is incorrect. You do not need to separate availability zones in order to separate applications. Separating zones is done for improving redundancy. Option B is incorrect. You don't need to separate regions in order to separate applications. Deploying multiple applications within the same region is normal. Option C is incorrect. Separating virtual network subnets does not separate communication between applications. It is necessary to separate the virtual network. The next question is: your company needs a VPN connection between Azure and the on-premises environment in order for the on-premises system on the corporate network to interact with the applications configured on Azure. Please select the Azure resource that you should use. Choose the two best solutions. Option A: Customer Gateway. Option B: Virtual Network Gateway. Option C: Local Network Gateway. Option D: NAT Gateway. Option E: Private Gateway. Options B and C are the correct answers. The Azure VPN Gateway provides a cross-premises connection between on-premises and Azure. Virtual network gateways are a type of VPN gateway. It is necessary to configure when making a VPN connection. VPN connection implementation task: creating a virtual network, creating a VNet virtual network gateway, creating a local network gateway, create a VPN connection. Check/confirm the connection. Therefore, options B and C are correct. The next question is: which of the following Microsoft Azure services is available to all developers without requiring machine learning expertise? Option A: Azure Machine Learning. Option B: Azure Bot Service. Option C: DSVM. Option D: Azure Cognitive Service. Option D is the correct answer. Cognitive Services is an AI platform that can be used by all developers without needing any machine learning expertise via APIs. You can embed AI functions such as image identification in the app with this. Option A is incorrect. A platform for building machine learning that allows you to build and deploy models more quickly with enterprise-specific machine learning services. It can be created in a workflow format, but it requires certain machine learning coding expertise. Option B is incorrect. Azure Bot Services is a service that allows you to create and publish chatbots. Option C is incorrect. DSVM is an Azure Virtual Machine image pre-installed, configured, and tested using common tools commonly used in data analysis, machine learning, and AI training. The next question is: you are planning to run an Azure PowerShell script from your Linux computer. What kind of preparation do you need? Please select the two most suitable solutions. Option A: install the PowerShell software. Option B: install PowerShell Core. Option C. Install Azure PowerShell Core. Option D. Install the PowerShell terminal. Option E. Install the Azure PowerShell module. Options B and E are the correct answers. Option B is the correct answer. Starting with PowerShell 6.0, PowerShell Core can run PowerShell on Mac OS and Linux. Option E is the correct answer. Use the Azure PowerShell module to create and manage Azure resources with the PowerShell command line and scripts. You can use the Azure PowerShell module to deploy Linux virtual machines, VMs, to Azure. The next question is: true or false? Azure Virtual Machine usage charge is decided only on time in seconds. Option A. True. Option B. False. The correct answer is false. Azure's pricing is pay as you go. You pay only for what you use. Prices fluctuate according to resource usage time and the kind of usage, whether you use extensions and also support. Azure Virtual Machines are charged per seconds depending on usage time. It was originally billed in minutes, but in line with AWS billing in seconds, Azure On-Demand VMs have been changed to bill in seconds. In line with AWS, many virtual machines are now being billed in seconds. The next question is: your company is planning a hybrid cloud with an on-premises environment in Azure. Currently, users are managed in the office using Active Directory domain service. Which is the best solution for managing users in Azure with on-premises management information? Option A. Deploy and sync with Azure Active Directory. Option B. Introduce Azure Policy and enable user account integration. Option C. Deploy and sync Azure AD Connect. Option D. Introduce Azure Active Directory and enable user account integration. Option C is the correct answer. Azure AD Connect is Microsoft's tool designed to meet hybrid identity goals. By executing the synchronization function, the identity information of on-premises users and groups can be matched with the cloud side. Options A and D are incorrect. Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based identity and access management service provided by Microsoft that helps you sign in and access Microsoft 365, the Azure portal, and more. Since it is used for user management to Azure, it cannot be synchronized with the on-premises environment by itself. Option B is incorrect. Azure Policy is an Azure feature used to create, assign, and manage policies that allows you to apply different rules and effects to resources to manage their permissions. The next question is: true or false, prices vary between availability zones in the same region? Option A. True. Option B. False. The correct answer is false. Prices are the same across availability zones within the same region. Azure, which has data centers around the world, has different prices depending on the products offered by each region, but the prices are the same within the same region, and there is no difference between availability zones. The next question is: true or false? Data transfer between Azure services within the same region incurs a cost. Option A. True. Option A. False. The correct answer is false. There is no charge for data transfer between services within the same region. For example, there is no additional data transfer cost for inter-virtual machine communication within the same region. You will be charged for data transfers between Azure services in the two regions. The next question is: your company configures a hybrid cloud with an on-premises environment in Azure. You are trying to set up integrated monitoring of servers in your on-premises environment and Azure virtual machines. Which solution is best for this? Option A. Azure Log Analytics. Option B. Azure Logs Monitor. Option C. Azure Events Hubs. Option D. Azure Monitor Logs. Option A is the correct answer. Azure Log Analytics is a service that can collect and analyze logs of Azure services. It is also possible to collect and analyze logs of Windows and Linux servers, of not only those on Azure but also on premises and other cloud services. Azure Log Analytics can acquire logs by installing an agent on the targeted server, set a threshold for the collected data, and have an alert issued. In addition, it makes it easier to understand the log status by aggregating the collected data on the dashboard and graphing it. Option B is incorrect. There is no feature called Azure Logs Monitor. Option C is incorrect. Event Hubs is a fully managed real-time data acquisition service. This can be used for streaming activity logs, but it is not used for server log acquisition, analysis. Option D is incorrect. Azure Monitor Logs was the old name for Azure Log Analytics and is no longer in use.